Hi guys, this is Kelvin Hinde, IFFB Pro, Masters Olympia 2023. I'm currently 4 weeks out, so I've decided for you guys today I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction to posing. This will benefit anybody who's fairly new to bodybuilding, first competitions, or just wanting to get better at posing. Posing is something that's very underestimated, and the importance of it. We spend years building muscle, we spend weeks and weeks dieting, and then we can't present that physique on stage. If you can't present the physique on stage, the judges cannot judge you to the best of their ability, and you will get marked down as somebody with a possibly inferior physique can beat someone on stage who has got more muscle, maybe even got more condition, but isn't able to present that. Posing practice is essential to get the most out of your physique on stage and get the best result possible. So I'm going to start this video, I'm going to go through bodybuilding poses and classic bodybuilding poses. Okay, so some of them obviously overlap. There is 7 compulsory poses in bodybuilding, there's only 4 in classic, plus the one classic pose of your choice. Now that can be one of the original bodybuilding poses. For example, if you've got great lats, a nice taper, you might just do a lat spread, you might just do a side tricep, or you may do an old school pose, an RA 3/4 back pose, or one arm on your hip and one arm on the, so one arm lat spread, one arm bicep. You may do a vacuum pose with the abs. So we're going to go through those poses. We're going to start with the quarter turns. Now the quarter turns are very important because that's the first thing the judges get to see. So we need to nail these quarter turns. That's going to get you in that first call out, and then you can present your muscularity in the later rounds. But without the quarter turns being spot on, the judges are not going to be able to put you in that first call out. So the first thing you need to do is nail them quarter turns. Right, so we're going to start with the quarter turns. Okay, these are the same for classic bodybuilding and for bodybuilding. You can put a different spin on them, but that's more really based on your physique. So the way I like to hit them from the front, switch the legs on. So feet about hip width apart, roll your toes out a little bit to create that sweep in the quads. You don't want to stand too wide. So about feet hip width apart, toes slightly out, roll the knees out, drop the legs into it, and flick up from here. You need to practice engaging the top of the quad. As soon as you lift the quad up, engage through there. So if you just stand straight, you want to get through this. If you want to get through there, you've got to switch that on. So just roll it out on the outside of the foot, brings them quads on. So roll into there, and then I like to do the vacuum. So the idea of a front pose is to make yourself keep the strength of the quads, keep the waist tight, open out the shoulders and the lats. A lot of people get too overly focused on the abs and they're trying to squeeze down on the abs and lose the width. So even if you can't do the vacuum pose, I'd switch the legs on and stand as tall as you can, opening your lats and shoulders out like that if you can't quite do the vacuum. I have seen people, some good bodybuilders, who do sort of like a half quarter turn pose, just offset it a little bit. So if you want to keep your abs on and open the lats still, you can play around with little quarters. I prefer to stand big, stand tall. It's not an ab pose. Open yourself out, make yourself look as big as possible. Okay, remember we're looking at symmetry in these rounds, really, not muscularity. So, quarter turn, drive your heel into the ground, bum forward, that'll bring the glutes into play, and then we want to keep the waist as tight as we can as we go through the quarter turns. And then as I twist in, my left shoulder round, so we'll be able to see the right shoulder to create the width across here, and then blow out through the abs. Imagine you pulling your belly button into your spine, and without having to crunch down, if you lose your shoulders then, you should be able to just go switch the obliques on without having to actually crunch down and lose your shoulders. You want to keep that top line nice and even there. Okay. The right side, quarter turn. You always go to the right, so it'll be right, turn to the right, show your left side, then show your rear. But I'll just show the right side it's exactly the same. Lock from out from here, keep this nice and tight, blow out, switch on, rotate, create that width, show the small waist. So you want the centre hip really pointing towards the middle of the judges' table. Now, the rear ones, a couple of different ones. You can stand up, drive the hips through the hamstrings there. Again, open the lats out, stand up tall, and maybe lean back. I'd even like to just flex the calves a little bit, just onto the calves, drawing the knees out, creates that sweep there, you see that? So you can create a sweep there, make the legs wider, the waist look narrower, open the lats out, lean back into it slightly, push out, drag your glutes forward. That's one way of doing it. The way that I've found seems to work better for mine to stretch my hamstrings on is to tilt my pelvis back, almost like the bikini girls do. Push out through the knees. Imagine you've got a band over the knees. Drive the knees out, switch the glutes on. Push forward a little bit, just keep the hips back, keep the glutes on, and then open the lats again from there. Just kind of creating a little arch there. So the waist is in the background, lats up wider from the back. So then your quarter turns. You can put your own little tweaks on a little bit. Some people might have one leg slightly in front of the other like that. You play around with it a little bit, use the mirrors, and then once you've practiced in the mirrors, practice recording yourself out of mirror because there's no mirrors on stage, so you need to know how it feels. So you need to resonate a feeling in your head to how the muscles being switched on. Okay, so the next set of poses we're going to do are the classic physique poses, and then I'll show you the additional bodybuilding poses after that. So there's 4 classic physique poses: front double bicep, your side chest, your rear double bicep, your abs and thigh, and then the 5th pose is a pose of your choice. We'll go into that after, so we'll go with the first 4. So, front double bicep. Again, I would start here, the legs on, straight. You can do vacuum, or you can't do that. I would still look to be standing big and not to squeeze down so much and lose size. So I would stand, just come up, open yourself up, round, and there. Now, one mistake people make is they tense too hard with the upper body and then they can't keep the legs on. So if I tense like that, at about 30%, or like that, there's no difference, but it drains my energy from holding my legs. And the one thing you see is people with soft legs squeezing their arms and not bringing everything else into play, because your whole physique is being judged in every pose. Just go to the front of a bicep. I'm starting from literally the calves, the quads, the waistline, the lats, front of a bicep. So you start in there, and then have your choice, opening that out there nicely, keeping the legs on. You should be almost semi-relaxed so you can hold that comfortably for 15 to 20 seconds in a big lineup. Or if you're going through pose after pose after pose, you need to be able to hold it for a certain amount of time. There's ways of offsetting this. You can drop onto one leg, open it out, rotate through the hips. Sean Roden used to do one, so it'll be more offsetting the arms as well as the legs. So you can play around with different versions of them. You could even have the legs more straight, just rotate the upper body. To be honest with you, if you've got a decent symmetry with nice small waist, decent quads and lats, it's just nice to be straight on and everything's in line. But it does suit some people's physiques to hit more of a classic sort of twist pose. So it's what goes with you. Just because it works for Terence Ruffin doesn't mean it'll work for you. So you've got to find where you look the best, manipulate your posing. Side chest pose. So come from the side, bend into it, bring the hamstring into play. I'll push this knee across, come onto my calf, show my calf, push my knee across this there, drop the hamstring down. Then I want to try and engage this glute, so I'm pushing it like there. So if you think about the adductor machines, there, and I'm bringing that into play, and I'm going to hold this, and then this should be quite easy. Working the bicep again. If you work too hard through this part and lose this goes all soft. So it's important to get these on, rotate through, obliques on, biceps on, chest on, then keep that leg on there. There's other options. You can do more of an Arnold pose. You can be up more tight on the legs there, still squeezing this on. Again, it depends what suits you. I've never really quite like that on mine. You may be left-handed, or you may find you've got a tattoo on one side, or a hide that, or an injury on one side, so you might want to pose both sides, because they will ask you favourite side chest or best side chest. So you only need to hit one and only hit your best. We've got a lot of lads that have been prepping this year, have been hitting the left side. Well, are you left-handed? I'm like, no. I'm like, well, why are you showing your left side if your right side dominant? But it is good to practice both. It does help to get the mind muscle contractions in both. You'll see the left side of me is not quite as good there on the glutes and stuff like that. But actually, I prefer that part of the chest pose. We're going to do the more vacuum pose and keep the chest up and lifted on that side. So it does offer you a different variation when you're doing your routines, so you can go from left to right side. Because sometimes I've found it's hard with being very dominant on my right side, that when I'm doing the quarter turns and transitioning through poses, I'm always wanting to be on one particular side, which makes it difficult when you try to transition from one pose to the next. Okay, so frontal bicep, side chest, and then we've got a radial bicep. So you're going to show a hamstring and calf. Again, I like to create a sweep here with the quad, rotate that out, rotate hamstring on, glutes on, and I like to come up, like I've done a pull down, bring the shoulder blades and one blades together, open them up, I drive the elbow underneath, arms back, and try out for a dual bicep there. You have an option again where you can push your hips back. Again, it's going to depend on your structure and whether you can do that with your hips. Some people will struggle with that. So it's just practice, video yourself, try a few different options and see what looks best. That's something that I've changed in my posing in the last 18 months. After 50 odd shows, I've decided that I find it better to stick the glutes out, and it brings better into play. More, it shows more striations. Okay, so now we've got the abs and thigh pose. So you've got abs on, abs off, vacuum. Again, create that sweep here. You're showing both legs. So what a lot of people do is they'll tempt one, forget about the other. You want to be able to show that leg, sit on it. Again, lifting this up here brings all this into play. You can just lock it down, especially if you've got striations, and show that. But I'd like to show the definition all the way up to the top as well. Hands over the head, a lot of people come here. You want your biceps and your ears, creating no gaps, and then down on the abs, keeping the legs on, and then you can move into a locked out pose if you want. The setup for the vacuum is the same. Set the legs up. This time we'll just and you can transition from one to the other with practice. So there's your 4 compulsory poses for classic. Now, if we go into open bodybuilding, we add in another 4, right? So there'll be the front lat spread. We set the legs up exactly the same as you did on the front one. Now this is one where I would tend to not do an offset. I would tend to keep the quads in line here and in line with the lats, so it looks very symmetrical. There is little offsets you can do where you twist to the side like Dorian did, and you just took a leg out. That can work as well. I think that's more maybe one for the posing round, and I would stick with the lat spread being the basic one. On, pushing your waistline in here, bring the lats up. Don't lose your chest by coming too far over and losing your shoulders. So you're staying big up here, chest is up, shoulders wide, legs on, and Keeping the waist as tight as you can. Again, you can hit the vacuum with it. If not, just stand up tall. Make yourself look big. Think about opening yourself out. A lot of people, when they're doing lots of tension too much, you've got to think about it as more of a stretch. Push it in from here, open it out and roll them shoulders around and bring them lats into play. So you're not contracting them, you're stretching them out. Do it from the back, it's probably a better way of describing it. So from the back we also show hamstring and calf. You'll see people on this pose coming back, trying to show that condition of the row. Come back here, so let's do a row, hands on the hips, rotate around, and you can say squeeze the shoulder blades together, open the shoulder blades out, show your lats there. Now, when they're doing the rear pose, you can afford to roll right round, because you're not going to lose your chest, because that's not doing deep. So, from the back here, you can try it both ways. You can try it just there, up tall, or you can come right over and see if that makes the pose more effective. So again, practice that, practice both options, see what you think, get some feedback of other people as well. Then you've got your side tricep. So, a couple of different options with this. The classic one would be the one where you do it is very similar to the side chest. On this side here, rotate through there, grab your finger, grab your thumb. It's hard to grab your wrist if you've got sort of any decent level of fitness muscle or big arms. So that's there. Block that tricep out, roll round so you can see both shoulders. Keep the shoulders in line again, collarbone in line. Abs on, glutes on, waist in, block out. The next option will be to do one of my favourite ones. My classic pose of choice is to roll out of it, show the quad. And then you've got the Dorian version where you actually have the best calves in the world, so you can show them. Again, you show the calves and hamstrings, so you roll that plate out. And I'm still showing the waist and the shoulder width. So 3 options to side tricep, and then there's the most muscular. Sometimes this counts as a compulsory pose, sometimes it's just something the last 4 at the end. Okay, so hands on hips. Now, if you've got great arms and traps, it would be that one as the classic one. For me, being tall, I always prefer the hands on the hips. This one can make it sometimes a little bit narrow. You keep the hands on the hips, keep your shoulders wide, your lats on, your legs on, and then you've got the crab pose like that. But again, it's most muscular, so you're not just thinking about this. Legs on first, on that leg, and there, or there. Try not to cover everything up, because we want to see as much muscle as we can, most muscular pose. So we want to see the quads, both sides, we want to see traps, chest, shoulders, arms, everything. Okay. Okay guys, final one that I do now is I'm going to show you some classic poses of your choice. So this is for the classic guys, but I'm also going to run through maybe just a couple of simple transitions for your routine. And if anyone's interested in me doing a video on how to transition from pose to pose and build into a routine, I'll leave a comment, leave a message, and I'll put something up. Alternatively, if you've got your posing sorted, you want a routine for yourself, come see me individually. I've had some really good success with guys that can pose really good, but they're just not transitioning quite well, they're just getting a bit stuttering from one pose to another, and they're not, it's just offsetting it so that your arms and everything's moving together, and you're not just sort of stumping around like that. Okay, so anyway, options for the classic pose of your choice. So we went through the one that I like. Any of those side tricep ones are a classic pose for me. Any lat spread. I wouldn't do a rear one if I was going to do the classic pose, I'd do a front one. That's a very classic pose. You can vary it up by having one arm up, like so. You can do a one arm vacuum pose. So one arm vacuum pose, one arm bicep, one arm lat spread, one arm bicep, lat spread, any version of the side tricep. You've got the Arnold 3/4 one, which is actually one I've sort of got fond of. So I'll come in from there, and it's nice to come in into that pose. So I'll go from a front double bicep pose, rotate on my feet, and through there, bringing the arms in like that, so they're tying together, so they're in line as you come in. You don't want to come too far or too low. It's just finding that spot where it shows the back and the arms together. Okay, so there's a couple of options of your favourite classic physique pose. There's many more. If you've got the guys with the great arms, they can do the mantis pose. It's never been one of my favourites, but it can be pulled off really well. Now, in terms of transitioning from one pose to another, the classic physique, like half poses, are a great way to get started. So, for example, if I do come into my first pose, let's say I just show my front quarter turn pose, and then come into a lat spread, as such, and then just dipping onto that one leg, moving that as you move the arms together, then you're into that pose, and then you can go into a double bicep pose. Now we're not wasting any movements, looking that way, rolling over, and now we're into that 3/4 back pose, which fit nicely into a side back, a side chest, into a side tricep. Now we can come round, doing that quarter tricep pose really. One arm bicep there, come round. So you can see we're not really wasting any movements. You've got to think, right, what poses I'm going to want to show, and how do I get from one pose to the next, making it look as simple and as easy as possible and as smooth. Okay, so if you want to go from a front double bicep to a rear lat spread, it's a difficult transition. What we could do it in the sense of we could set up a pose where we're doing double bicep like this, roll into that one, and then into a lat spread. So you've always got to have like a halfway point, which is why I said the half poses on the classic, whether it be there or there, can help us go from one to another. It's difficult to go from a front double bicep, front lat spread. So it's having them halfway transitional poses where it looks fluid and easy to do, that gets you into the next pose without looking like you've just stumbled into the next pose. Okay, so you're doing a bit by practice, but the idea of transitioning from one pose to another is find a halfway point, hold that pose, find a beat where it's not too fast, you can go from one pose to another. It should be a pose at your own natural speed for you. So pick a song that feels comfortable with how fast you want to move, and it's something you can hold. I had a girl the other day, it's a fantastic routine, but just needed slowing down because she wasn't hitting the poses. It's more of a dance routine. Remember, you're still showing your physique off, so you need to be able to hold those poses, show your physique off. The transitioning beautifully through poses is great, but you still need to make sure you're holding the poses long enough for the judges to appreciate your physique and get a best result. Any questions, any comments? Put them in the description.